All right, we're doing college algebra matrix inverses, lesson 5.8. College algebra lesson 5.8. Okay. Now what we have on here is what's the product of this and this is the identity matrix of size 2, which would be this right here. This is the identity matrix. Okay. Now when you multiply an identity matrix times any matrix, you get that same thing. That's much like if I did 1 times any number, like 27. 1 times 27 is 27. Okay? This is the identity, the multiplicative identity. When I multiply 1 times something, I get the same thing. And that's what this is. This is the matrix identity. And when I multiply this matrix times any matrix, I get that same matrix. And so the answer is just going to be that same thing. Now let me show you how this does. If I multiply this one times that one, I'll do it right here and then put my answer right here. This, of course, like we talked about multiplication, it's a 2 by 2. This is a 2 by 2. The inner numbers match. So the outer numbers, 2 by 2, is what I end up with. So I'm going to have a 2 by 2 matrix right here. So another thing that we talked about on multiplication, RC cola. I've got to do the rows in this one times my columns in this one. Okay, so if I do this entry right here, this is the first row in the first column. I got to do this first row times this first column. So 4 times 1 is 4, 3 times 0 is 0, 4 plus 0 is 4. All right, now for this entry, I go this column. So I do it again. 4 times 0 is 0, 3 times 1 is 1, or 3. 0 plus 3 is 3. And you can see how it's already lining up. Now down here, I got to go to the second row, first column. So here's my first column, here's my second row. So I've got negative 2 times 1, which is negative 2. And then I've got 8 times 0, which is 0. Negative 2 plus 0 is negative 2. And if I go this last column, negative 2 times 0 is 0. 8 times 1 is 8. 0 plus 8 is 8. And you can see I get the same identical thing. So right here, we don't even have to do the work. We can tell this is the identity matrix right here. When I multiply this times the identity, I'm going to get this same thing. So this right here will be this same answer right there. Okay. So this is the identity matrix. This is the identity matrix. A 4 by 4 identity matrix would look like this. This is a 4 by 4 identity matrix, and a 5 by 5 likewise, and so on. Okay, now, leave number 3 right here. It says it can be shown that the following matrices are inverses. What is their product in either order? Now, what this means is, if you have two matrices that are inverses of each other, then if I multiply them, I will get the identity matrix. So if I multiply these two right here, I should get this identity matrix is what I should get. Now again, this is a 3 by 3. This is a 3 by 3. The inner numbers match. So I'm going to end up with a 3 by 3. All right, so this is what I'm going to get here. Okay. Now RC cola, I got to do my rows in this one times my columns in that one. Okay, so right here, this first row, first column, right here, these two. 1 times 1 is 1, 0 times 0 is 0, 0 times 14 is 0, 1 plus 0 plus 0 is 1. Now I go this next column, right here. 0 times 1 is 0, 0 times negative 1 is 0, 0 times 0 is 0, 0. Now I go this next one, 0, 0, 0. All right, I go down the next row, first column, 0, 0, 0. Okay, middle, 0. Oh, look here, negative 1 times negative 1 is 1, plus 0, 0 plus 1 plus 0 is 1. 0, 0, 0. You can see how it's working out. I go to the first column here. Negative 14 times 1 is negative 14. 0 times 0 is 0. 1 times 14 is 14. Negative 14 plus 0 plus positive 14 is 0. 0, 0, 0. And then the last one here. Negative 14 times 0 is 0. 0 times 0 is 0. 1 times 1 is 1. 0, 0, and 1 is 1. And you can see I get the identity matrix. So these are inverses of each other. I went through that kind of fast. If you need to rewind it and watch it again, please do. Now we can use the inverse to solve for systems of equations. Like right here, this is a system, and we could solve this, what we're going to get into, but this is just wanting to figure out what the coefficient matrix is. So the coefficient matrix would be this right here. See, these are my coefficients. Okay. This one wants to know what the matrix equation is. All right, the matrix equation is this right here. My coefficient matrix times my variable matrix, which is my variables are x and y. And that equals my answer matrix over here, which is 18 and 9. This is a matrix equation. And if you notice, if I multiply these right here, I do my rows, RC cola, my rows in the first one times my columns. So if I do my row here times this, look here, I will do 4 times x, which is 4x, plus 2 times y, which is 2y. So I have 4x plus 2y equals 18 over here. And see, there's that equation. If I go down the next row, 4x plus negative y equals 9. So you can see it does work out. Okay. Now, this says right here, determine if these are inverses of each other. So we're just going to multiply these together. This is a 2 by 2. This is a 2 by 2. Inner numbers match. Outer numbers is what you're going to end up with. So I'm going to end up with a 2 by 2. So RC cola, I got to do my rows in this one times my columns in that one. All right, now look at this one here. 3 times 5 is somewhere right over here. 15 plus negative 7 times 2 is negative 14. When I add those, I get 1. Okay, now go to the next column. 3 times 7 is 21 plus negative 7 times 3 is negative 21. That's going to be a 0. So far, so good. All right, let's go down this next row times this first column. Negative 2 times 5 is negative 10, plus 5 times 2 is positive 10, and that's a 0. Okay, now the next column. Negative 2 times 7 is negative 14, plus 5 times 3 is 15, and if I add those, I get 1. And look, sure enough, I get the identity matrix, which means these are inverses of each other. Okay, that's what I'll do here, that's what I'll do here. And again, that's what I'll do down here on this one. I'm just going to multiply them, and if I get the identity, they're inverses. If I don't get the identity, then they're not inverses. So as I'm doing this now, as I'm doing this, if I get a 1, a 0, and a 0, and then all of a sudden here I get a 2 or something, and it's not a 0, then I can just quit. Now, I don't know if that's what I've got going on here or not. I'm just telling you that once I get one number that's not what the identity matrix is, then I can just quit, and they're not inverses. So no sense in doing them all once you get one number that's not right. Okay? Now, when we get to number 10 here, it says find the inverse. Now, when you have a 2 by 2 matrix, to find the inverse, you do this little set of stuff here. First, you have to find the determinant. Okay? If you remember the determinant, I multiply these. Negative 1 times negative 1 is 1. Minus, and I multiply these. 3 times negative 2 would be negative 6. 1 minus negative 6 is 7. So my determinant is 7. Okay? So now, my inverse is going to be 1 over this 7 times what I call the swap and switch matrix. Call this the swap and switch. Because what I do is, these two numbers right here, I swap them. So this -1 comes here, that -1 comes down here. These two right here, I just switch the signs of them. So 3 becomes a -3, and -2 becomes a +2. And now I do it 1/7 times all those. So here's what I get. I get 1/7 times -1, which is -1/7. 1/7 times -3, which is -3/7. I get 1/7 times 2, which is 2/7. I get 1/7 times -1, which is -1/7. And this right here is my inverse. Okay. Now, which means you should be able to multiply those two and get the identity. All right, so I'm going to do this right here. I'm going to get this other paper. I'm going to write this matrix out. This was -1, 3, -2, and -1. And here's what my inverse is supposedly: -1/7, -3/7, 2/7, -1/7. And I'm going to multiply these out. And right here, I should get the identity. Okay, well, let's see if we do here. So let's just put this up here. So this is what we're doing. We're checking it. All right. So again, you got to do, this is going to be a 2 by 2. I got to do my rows times my columns. Rows in the first one, it's always RC cola. Rows in the first one times your columns in the second one. All right, so let's see here. -1/7 times -1 times -1/7 would be 1/7, plus 3 times 2/7 is 6/7, and 1/7 plus 6/7 is 7/7, which is 1. Okay. All right. Now go to the next column. -1 times -3/7 is 3/7, plus 3 times -1/7 is -3/7, and look there, that's 0. Okay, now down here on the next row, times the first column, -2 times -1/7 would be +2/7, plus -1 times 2/7 would be -2/7, and look there, that's a 0. Hey, we're in good shape, man. One more though. Got this column, this row here times this column, so -2 times -3/7 is 6/7, plus -1 times -1/7 would be +1/7, and sure enough, that's a 1. And look there, we do have the identity, which means this is the inverse of that matrix there. So this is an inverse, so that's what I would put for my inverse. Okay, so the inverse matrix, back to this right here, the inverse matrix is that right there. That's my inverse. So it was right. So find the inverse here. There's a couple more we have to do that. Maybe I'll do one more. Okay. So find my determinant first. So -1 times 4 is -4. And then minus 2 times -5 is -10. So it's going to be 6. My determinant is 6. So you got to find your determinant. Okay, -4 minus -10, which is 6. And then my inverse is going to be 1 over that 6 times the swap and switch. Which means -1 and 4 swap spots. We swap them. Okay, that was not as clearly seen up here because these are both the same, but we got to swap those. So I swap those, and then these I switch the sign. So -5 becomes a +5, 2 becomes a -2. All right, now do 1/6 times every one of those. All right, so 1/6 times 4 would be 4/6, which is 2/3. 1/6 times 5 is 5/6. 1/6 times -2 is -2/6, which is -1/3. 1/6 times -1 is -1/6. And there you go. That's my inverse. Okay. Maybe I should check it and make sure. I'll do that right here. Okay. So I'm checking it. -1, -5, 2, 4. Multiplied by this supposedly my inverse. I might go through this a little bit quicker. I'm going to do rows times my columns. Okay, this is a 2 by 2, that's a 2 by 2. I'm going to end up with a 2 by 2. Alright, so -1 times 2/3 is -2/3. -5 times -1/3 is a plus 5/3. And that's going to be 3/3, which is 1. Okay, now do this column. -1 times 5/6 is -5/6, plus -5 times -1/6 would be a positive 5/6, and that's a 0. All right, now down here on this row now, times this column, 2 times 2/3 would be 4/3. I got a call there, had to cancel it off. 4 times -1/3 would be -4/3. That's a 0. And then now the last 2 times 5/6 would be 10/6. Plus 4 times -1/6 would be -4/6. 10/6 minus plus -4/6 is 6/6, which is 1. And look there, I got the identity, which means this is the inverse. Okay, so that's how you do that. Now, when you have a 3 by 3, there's a little bit more of a process involved. Let me write this one down on here. 1, 0, 1, 0, -1, 0, 5, 1, 4. I want to find the inverse of that. Okay. All right, well, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to erase this. And I'm just going to put me like a little line right here. And I'm going to put the identity over here on this side. Oop. And what I want to do is I want to do row operations and things and make this have the identity over here. So I want to get this over here, and then what I have over here will be the inverse of that. Okay, so we got to start with our first column. Now we've done this in a previous lesson. I get my 1 in first, which I already have a 1. There's a 0 there. This needs to be a 0. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do -5 times this row. I'm going to write down here. So -5 times 1 is -5. -5 times 0 is 0. -5 times 1 is -5. -5 times 1 is -5. -5 times 0 is 0. -5 times 0 is 0. And I'm going to add these two together and rewrite it all over again. Okay. So I got 1, 0, 1, 1, 0, 0, 0, -1, 0, 0, 1, 0. Now down here I'm going to add these two together. So 5 plus -5 is 0. 1 plus 0 is 1. 4 plus -5 is -1. 0 plus -5 is -5. 0 plus 0 is 0. 1 plus 0 is 1. And there you go. My first column is set in there. Good to go. All right, so now I'm going to shift to my second column and get it to go. Now, remember, this is what I'm trying to get. This right here, the identity. So I need a 0, 1, and a 0. Okay. Now I've already got a 0 here. That's good. But the ones I'm supposed to get first. That's a -1. So really, all I need to do is just change all these signs to the opposites. So let's go ahead and write this in here. Change all these signs. So 0, the opposite of 0 is 0. The opposite of -1 is 1. The opposite of 0 is 0. The opposite of 0 is 0. The opposite of 1 is -1. The opposite of 0 is 0. And there you go. There's my middle one. And I got my 1 locked in. Now this top one already had a 0, so I'm going to go ahead and write it down. But now the bottom one, see right here? That's got to be a 0. Now what do I add to 1 to make it be 0? Well, I add -1. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to Well, this one I just changed is what I would get if I did -1 times this row here. See, here's my 1, and then I take times it to add to this. Well, if I do -1 times this, I'll get what I just had originally. So I'm just going to add these two together. So 0 plus 0 is 0. -1 plus 1 is 0. 0 plus -1 is -1. 0 plus -5 is -5. 1 plus 0 is 1. 0 plus 1 is 1. And there you go. See, my column's perfect. Oops. I'm sorry. I just added these two together. 0 plus 0 is 0. -1 plus 1 is 0. 0 plus -1 is -1. 0 plus -5 is -5. 1 plus 0 is 1. 0 plus 1 is 1. And my column's perfect now. And so I'm just on this last one here. So I got the first two columns. I got to get this one. I got to do my 1 first. Well, this needs to be a 1 down here, but it's a -1. So I'll just change the signs. Okay, so opposite of 0 is 0. The opposite of 0 is 0. The opposite of -1 is 1. The opposite of -5 would be 5. The opposite of 1 would be -1. The opposite of 1 would be -1. Okay. Now on this column here, that's a 0 like it's supposed to be, so I could just write that one down. We're good to go on it. And on the top one here, this needs to be a 0. It's a 1, so I'm going to do -1 times this row, and I'm going to add it to that row. All right, well, -1 times this row is actually what this row was right here. So I'm just going to add this row to that row. So 1 plus 0 is 1. 0 plus 1 is 1. 1 plus 0 is 1. I'm sorry. I'm adding the wrong row. It's supposed to be the bottom one. Messed up. I got to add the bottom one to this one because that's where my 1 row was. -1 times this row is this row. I accidentally started adding the wrong row, but I got to add the top one and the bottom one. 1 plus 0 is 1. 0 plus 0 is 0. 1 plus -1 is 0. 1 plus -5 is -4. 0 plus 1 is 1. 0 plus 1 is 1. And there you go. I got my identity on this side now, which means this is my inverse. Okay. We'll go back and see what we got here. Here's one that looks like it might be a little bit harder. Find the inverse of this one here. Okay. All right, so let me write this thing down here. Okay. 2, 4, -4, 2, 8, 0, -3, -2, 6, 1, 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 0, 0, 1. Okay. Now, I'm going to do my row operations and get this identity over here. Now, this one looks like it might be a little bit tougher, but we're going to chug on through it. All right, so right here, this needs to be 1. I need a 1, a 0, and a 0 is what I need. We got to do our 1s first. So to make this be a 1, I'm just going to divide by 2, divide everything in this row here, divide by 2. So 2 divided by 2 would be 1. 4 divided by 2 would be 2. -4 divided by 2 is -2. 1 divided by 2 is 1/2. 0 divided by 2 is 0. 0 divided by 2 is 0. And there you go. There's my first row here. Okay. Now, I need a 0 right there. So what do I add to this to get 0? Okay, I got to add -2. So I'm going to do -2 times this row and then add it to that row. See what you do now. To change your 1s, you either multiply or divide to change your 1s. But to change to 0s, you got to add or subtract. You got to add or subtract a row to it. So I divided everything here by 2 and got this to get my 1 now. Now I'm going to take this times -2, which -2 times 1 is -2, -2 times 2 is -4, -2 times -2 is 4, -2 times 1/2 is -1, -2 times 0 is 0, -2 times 0 is 0. And now I'm going to add this to that row right there, which will give me a 0. See here, 2 plus -2 is my 0. Okay, now I got to do the rest of them. So 8 plus -4 is 4. 0 plus 4 is 4. 0 plus -1 is -1. 1 plus 0 is 1. 0 plus 0 is 0. Okay, and there we go. There's that row. Now, let's erase this, because we've got one more 0 that I have right here, and that's a -3. So now, what do I add to -3 to make it be 0? Well, I got to add 3. So I'm going to go back to my one row. I'm going to times it by 3. I'm going to times all this row by 3. I'm going to write it here, and I'm going to add it to that one there. So 3 times 1 is 3. 3 times 2 is 6. 3 times -2 is -6. 3 times 1/2 is 3/2. 3 times 0 is 0. 3 times 0 is 0. And now I add this to this row now. So -3 plus 3 is my 0. -2 plus 6 is 4. -6 plus 6 plus -6 is 0. 0 plus 3/2 is 3/2. 0 plus 0 is 0. 1 plus 0 is 1. And there you go. My whole first column is good to go. I got to repeat the process for the next 2 columns. All right, you got to do your 1 first. So like right here, this is where my 1 needs to be in this row. It's a 4. So I'm going to divide everything by 4 in that row. All right, so 0 divided by 4 is 0. 4 divided by 4 would be 1. 4 divided by 4 would be 1. -1 divided by 4 is -1/4. 1 divided by 4 is 1/4. 0 divided by 4 is 0. All right, there's that row. And now I'm going to multiply by that row to add to the other rows to get my zeros. So see right here at the top, I've got a 2. What makes that turn into a 0? A -2. So I'm going to do -2 times the row I just did. I'm going to write it here in the middle, and I'm going to add it to that top row. So -2 times 0 is 0. -2 times 1 is -2. -2 times 1 is -2. -2 times -1/4 is +1/2. -2 times 1/4 is -1/2. -2 times 0 is 0. And now I'm going to add this row right here to this top row. So 1 plus 0 is 1. 2 plus -2 is 0. That's what I needed. -2 plus -2 is -4. 1/2 plus 1/2 is 1. 0 plus -1/2 is -1/2. And then 0 plus 0 is 0. Okay, that's a little bit tight right there. I should have gave myself a little more room. Here, let me just do this. This is a 1/4. That's a -1/2 right there. Okay, maybe make this one a little smaller. There we go. That looks a little better. Don't want to confuse myself on the next step. Now, I need this bottom one right here. I need a 0 right there. Well, right now, that it's a 4. What do I add to 4 to make it be 0? I got to add -4. So I'm going to erase these numbers here I did just a minute ago. And I want a -4 here, which means I'm going to take -4 times my 1 row. This is my 1 row because it's got the 1 in the column I'm working on right now. So -4 times 0 is 0. -4 times 1 is -4. -4 times 1 is -4. -4 times -1/4 is +1. -4 times 1/4 is -1. -4 times 0 is 0. And now I'm going to add these two right here. 0 plus 0 is 0. 4 plus -4 is 0, like I need. 0 plus -4 is -4. 3/2 plus 1, that's 2/2, that'd be 5/2. 0 plus -1 is -1. 1 plus 0 is 1. All right, there you go. All right, my first 2 columns look great. I need to get this 3rd column and I'm done. So we got one more routine with this. Okay. So I need to get my 1 first. This is a -4, so I'm going to divide by -4 everything, and that's going to make that into a 1. All right, so I'm going to divide 0 by negative 4 is 0. 0 divided by negative 4 is 0. Negative 4 divided by negative 4 is 1. 5 halves divided by negative 4 would be negative 5 eighths. Negative 1 divided by negative 4 would be 1/4. 1 divided by negative 4 is negative 4. Negative 1/4. Okay. Now I need right here, I need a 0 right there. That's a 1. So I think what I'll do is I'll just subtract this row from that one. 1 minus 1 would make it be 0. So that's why I'm going to subtract this one. So 0 minus 0 would be 0. 1 minus 0 is 1. 1 minus 1 would be 0. Okay. Negative 1/4 minus negative 5 eighths would be negative 1/4 plus 5 eighths, which is 3 eighths. 1/4 minus 1/4 is 0. 0 minus negative 1/4 would be positive 1/4. Okay, now I got the top one. And this is a negative 4, which means I need to add to it a positive 4. So what I'm going to do here now, I'm going to do 4 times this row. 4 times 1 give me a 4, and then that would add to that one and give me a 0. So 4 times 0 is 0. 4 times 0 is 0. 4 times 1 is 4. 4 times negative 5 eighths would be negative 5/4. Oh, hold on, negative 5 halves, wouldn't it? 4, 8, yeah, negative 5 halves. 4 times 1/4 would be 1. 4 times negative 1/4 would be negative 1. And now I add these, I add this to the top one. 1 plus 0 is 1. 0 plus 0 is 0. Negative 4 plus 4 is 0. 1 plus negative 5 halves, that's 2 halves, minus would be negative 3 halves. Then negative 1/2 plus 1 would be 1/2. And then 0 plus negative 1 is negative 1. Okay, let me erase these right here. There's my identity there, which means this is my inverse. All right, and that's there's a lot of computations involved in that. There's a lot of places to make mistakes. So here's a 4x4. We do the same thing on that. So that's going to be a little bit more work. And that one right there, I may do one of them later. Not right now, because my video is getting long as it is. I want to go to one of these here and show you how to do this. It says solve the system by using the inverse and coefficient matrix. Okay, so what we do here. Now I'll tell you this: you can solve this system. You can put your answers in, and the computer's not going to know if you do this by doing the inverse and coefficient or if you do it some other method. So I'll just give you that little advice there. You can do it any which way you want. But anyway, I'm going to write this matrix out. Here's my coefficient matrix: 1, 8, 7, 3. All right, my variable is x and y, and it equals, and over here I'm going to put negative 34 and negative 26. What I'm going to do is I'm going to find the inverse of that matrix there. So, and I'm going to multiply it on both sides. So like 1 times 3 is 3, minus 3, 7 times 8 is 56. That's negative 53. Well, they're not making this very easy, are they? What about that? So it's going to be 1 over 53 times the swap and switch. So 3 and 1 swap. Then negative 8, negative 7, those switch signs. Okay, which gives me my inverse is going to be 3 over 53, negative 8 over 53, negative 7 over 53, and 1 over 53. I got to multiply this times each one of those, and boy, I tell you what a matrix here. All right, I'm going to multiply it on both sides. So I'm going to put it right here, 3 over 53 negative 8 over 53, negative 7 over 53, and 1 over 53. And I'm going to put it here. 3 over 53, negative 8 over 53, negative 7 over 53, 1 over 53. I'm going to multiply that on both sides. Okay, now when I multiply here, rows times my columns, I should get the identity. Let's see here. 3 over 53, negative 56, that'd be 3, and negative 56 is negative 1. Oh, I'm sorry, this is negative 53. Dang it, dang it, dang it. All right, so that changes all these. This is negative, negative, and these two are positive. I left my negative off there. All right, same thing over here, negative, negative, and these two are positives. All right, so yeah, that would give me a 1. I'm going to do this one. That's going to be negative 24 and 24, which would be 0. Right here, this is going to be 7 and negative 7, which is 0. I'm just doing the numerators, not doing the denominators. This is going to be 56 minus 3, which is 53 over 53, which is 1. So I do get the identity matrix times xy. So say I got this right here is the identity matrix times my xy, which is just xy. So basically, right here, I'm going to have xy equals, and then I'll back up here, I'll multiply those, and that goes there. So if I do my rows times my columns, okay, and this is going to have to take the calculator here. All right, so I've got negative 3 over 53 times negative 34 plus 8 over 53 times negative 26, and I get negative 2. So x is negative 2. Now do the bottom here. So I've got 7 divided by 53 times negative 34 plus negative 1 over 53 times negative 26, and I get negative 4. And there you go, y is negative 4. That's my solution. Okay. All right, so like I said, the computer's not going to know if you did it this way. You can do it another way if you'd rather do it. Here's a system of equations. You can do this a different way if you'd rather. Anyway, that's all I have time for right now. This video is pretty long as it is. And if you have any questions, just please contact me. Have a great day.